Please welcome the Hill's Senate reporter, Alex Bolton, in conversation with senior member of the Senate Judiciary Committee, Senator Amy Klobuchar.
Hello.
Hello, everybody. Great to be here. Senator, thank you for joining us. This is a big event for us, and we're thrilled to have you here.
Thank you to The Hill and News Nation for coming together to put it on.
Mm-hmm. So a lot going on Capitol Hill right now, and you're in the
Really?
You're in the middle of a lot of it. Let's talk about the news today on the Senate floor, the rescissions package. It looks like it's going to pass after it made it through those two procedural votes last night. And one of the biggest parts of it are the cuts to Corporation for Public Broadcasting. What do you think the cuts to Corporation for Public Broadcasting mean for rural communities specifically?
Mm-hmm. So we are not done with this yet. We're going to have amendment votes. I think everyone knows there may be some changes to the bill. There's some talk about PEPFAR and how important that is, as we're on the cusp of basically eliminating AIDS in some countries. There's a lot of talk about the work that the president has done in the Mideast, and maybe we don't want to upend some of that with Jordan and some of our neighbors for foreign aid. And then Ukraine. But the final point of it, which for me is just hits so close to home, is public TV, public radio. So as you know, Minnesota has a huge rural area, and so many of these stations, the rural stations, are 2-to-1 higher percentage, the ratio of federal funding. So they'll get 20%, they'll get 30%. It's still not a majority of their funding. And these rural stations are often the lifeblood of these communities. When it comes to emergency alerts in the town of Bemidji, that's where the Paul Bunyan statue is. They don't even have they have a newspaper that I do interviews with a lot, but it's online now. This radio station and the TV stations, those are how they get their emergency alerts. Grand Marais, Minnesota, on the very tip of our state, when you think of our state, no other station on the radio is giving us weekly and hourly and every moment broadcasts about what? The Canadian wildfires. Because people need to know, especially seniors, what the air quality is. They tell us when the deer has been hit in the middle of the road and they still don't have it removed. These are things that may sound small, but they're what bring a community together. And so I hope that our colleagues will look at that from that perspective when you look at all the rural radio and TV and think of it in a different way. I've been contacted by so many former state legislators who are Republicans who from rural areas who are on the boards of the local TV and the like, and I know my colleagues have too. So I would say we know there's going to be some changes to the bill, so it's going to go back to the House. So I was disappointed in the vote last night. I think we should be asserting our power. There are 3 branches of government, and this was a decision made in the past by a Republican House and a Democratic Senate that came together and made a decision on the budget. And when you start messing around a year, 2 years later on this kind of stuff, people will be afraid to compromise. And I think we need more compromise and not less.
Republicans have been trying to cut PBS and NPR for decades, really. I mean, this goes back to the Reagan days. It was part of Trump's first budget in the first term. Republicans rejected it. Now it seems like they're ready to accept it. What do you think has changed?
I don't know. I think they would say they don't like some of the programming here and there, but they also like some of the programming. It's hard not to like the PBS Kids, where you can put your kids in front of those programs and know they're not going to be exposed like online to pornography or be exposed to a fentanyl ad, or they're not going to get advertising trying to lure them in to buy something. It's hard to not think it's okay when you're a business and you want to get some sort of non-adversarial business news. There's a lot of places to get it, including in these 2 outlets. But one is Marketplace, which happened to start at a local station in Minnesota. So I just think some of this programming that they don't like, I know they pointed to that, really is minuscule compared to the services that these public TV, public radio stations bring. And I say this as a daughter of a journalist who, by the way, was the first reporter in our Minnesota for the Star Tribune to cover the Vikings. He wrote 23 books, including the authorized biography of Fran Tarkington and a book called Will the Vikings Ever Win the Super Bowl? Which is sadly still relevant today. But he also wrote general journalism, and I just see that as such a need right now. And my dad actually had a way of, he talked about ordinary people doing extraordinary things, of telling the stories of people in our state that really resonated with people, that they understood people in a different way, and that is a role of these stations as well. So my hope is that we find some way to get through this, and so we don't see a bunch of rural stations going under, which is what will happen. It won't be the big city ones, it'll be the rural ones.
Moving on, economy and tariffs. News this week, Prime Minister Mark Carney of Canada said that there's not a lot of evidence right now that Canada and the US can reach a trade deal. Trump says he plans to impose a 35% tariff on imports from Canada starting August 1st. He's already applied 50% tariffs on steel and aluminum imports, which of course Canada is a big supplier of those. What impact do you think we're seeing on the US economy so far from these tariffs on Canada and these threatened tariffs on Canada?
So, as you know, I'm from Minnesota, where we can see Canada from our porch. They are our biggest trading partner, eclipsing our next three when you even add them together. And I've always seen Canada as this friend. They are the one embassy that for years had displayed banners that said friend, partner, ally. For 34 states, they are our biggest trading partner. And I know that the president respects Prime Minister Carney. I know this from things that I've seen and heard, and I also went up to Canada with Senator Kramer on a bipartisan trip, and Senator Shaheen and others, and met with Prime Minister Carney about this. And I know that he's interested in reaching agreement. So I would think the way to do this sanely would be within the USMCA, which was the president's trade agreement. I was one of the first Democrat on the primary debate stage that endorsed that agreement. You can see how well it worked for me. That is his jewel of a trade agreement. It needs changes, especially when it comes to dairy. With Canada, there's been some disadvantages to our country, and the president knows this. So I just hope that that's what they do instead of pissing off the people of this country. And what they're engaged in right now, I get this because I hate the rhetoric on the 51st state. They're literally not coming to America. We've seen the border crossings in Minnesota down 30-40%. And we're talking about people who drive to Duluth, Minnesota, or go to the Mall of America in Bloomington. I was in New Hampshire last week, same thing that I heard from some people involved in tourism there. Vermont, you can ask Peter Welch about this. He'll tell you the same thing. So this is even beyond the price of cans to put our beer in for our breweries, or it's beyond the construction costs when you see increases because we get timber from Canada. This is also about tourism and a longtime friend, and we can't continue like this. The Senate, it's the one bipartisan vote we had, 51 votes with Tim Kaine's measure. I was the second co-sponsor of it, to upend those tariffs and say Congress should reassert itself. We actually passed that with the votes of Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski, states bordering Canada, and my favorite two, Rand Paul and Mitch McConnell, who don't agree on much, but what do they agree on? Anyone know? Kentucky? Bourbon, that's right. Bourbon has been taken off the shelves in Canada. So I just want to get to a better place. There are these tariffs overall beyond Canada. Tax on families, $2,800 per family, changed over 100 times. You've got allies, Japan, South Korea. We don't have places to send our soybeans in Minnesota. I'm just a believe in targeted tariffs, some of which the president did during his first term. But I don't believe in what's going on right now. I think it's very detrimental to our economy in the short and long term. And you see the inflation costs already going up with the numbers from this consumer price index just 2 days ago on the 2.7% increase in inflation.
So there's a lot in Washington, a lot in Congress that's happening that you're not thrilled about, to put it mildly, but you did get a win in May when President Trump signed your bill, the Take It Down Act, into law. Mm-hmm. The law protects individuals from the non-consensual publication of intimate images including images generated by AI. What other regulation do you think what other AI regulation do you think has a chance of passing this Congress?
Sure. So first, the story on that bill, and it is the first time we've put in place some kind of rules on AI. This is a bill I have with Ted Cruz, and it's a bill that I discussed with the president and the vice president and Melania at the inaugural lunch. You know, I think leave no moment on this, as I knew she was interested in these issues online. And she supported the bill. We had already, Ted and I had got it through the Senate. It is a big deal because it says the platforms have to take down non-consensual porn in 48 hours. That includes both AI created and actual. 25 kids a year, last FBI statistic I had, have committed suicide over this. They think their life is shattered. They think they're sending a picture to a potential girlfriend or boyfriend. It gets distributed on the internet. They don't know how to handle it. They kill themselves. So when she came out for that bill, we were able to get it through the House. It had stalled out there, and then he signed it into law. To me, that's just the beginning. We should be doing the same kind of thing for people's images with AI. Marsha Blackburn and Chris Coons and Tillis and I have a bill on that we've reached agreement with a whole bunch of groups about how to do it, so people have the right to their own image online. And this isn't just about country music stars, although Randy Travis was there to launch the bill, but it is just also about everyone's image, that they should have the right to their own image, and it makes it very clear. Drugs being sold online, fentanyl, these are all things that I believe we should at least start with as we're looking at rules of the road when it comes to AI. Senator Thune and I have kind of a base bill that we introduced last year on at least giving NIST the power to set some standards for non-defense use of AI. I do think we're going to have to get some rules in the road. When Elon Musk said he wants some rules for AI, I think maybe we should listen. And I think it was David Brooks who once said that he found it hard to write about AI because he didn't know if it would lead us to heaven or hell. So it has such potential for the State of the Mayo Clinic, cures for rare diseases, and all kinds of really amazing things we can do with it, but not if it gets taken over by scammers and if it's used for bad things, and we don't even have any rules to protect people for bad uses. That's not good for the companies that are developing it, and let's not do what happened with privacy, which we didn't put any rules in place, and now we have a patchwork of laws across the states. They filled a role which they had to fill, and I believe in giving AI empowerment to the states now, but part of why I believe it is because we haven't doing anything on the federal level, and it's time to act.
You know, Ted Cruz is known as a very partisan fighter.
Really?
What was it like working? Well, how did that come about? I mean, did you bump into him in the elevator?
Oh, no. He's actually been willing to stand up. He and Josh Hawley, Senator Grassley has, Senator Kennedy, I've worked with them. They're all on the always friendly, lovey-dovey Judiciary Committee on which I serve. And Ted also, when I chaired the Rules Committee, he was on the Rules Committee as well. So we have worked together despite having major disputes over judges and other things. We've worked together on a number of these issues. He's been willing to stand up, and it's hard to find people on both sides of the aisle who's willing to say, okay, we love the products, so many of these, we're not Neanderthals, but we need to put rules of the road, or we're going to let other countries do it, and we're not going to be able to get to the next level with these products if kids are dying because they think they are getting a Percocet online on Facebook or Snapchat, and they end up that it's laced with fentanyl, and with one pill, they're dead. That has happened way too many times in this country, and it's hard to believe with all of the advancement in these countries and in these companies and all of the incredible expertise and money they have, that they are unable to get to a better place on this front. And that includes, by the way, with making sure they're paying for content to the media companies, which is a bill that Senator Kennedy and I have long led.
Clearly, it's a huge frontier. It's something that Chuck Schumer wants to make one of his priorities, so certainly interested to see what happens there.
Yes, he and Senator Young and Senator Rounds and Heinrich led just the most bipartisan meetings that we've had. So people are pretty up to speed on it in the Senate, and I know the Speaker has said that he wants to do something at some point, and I hope that this is a moment where we can sort of put things aside for the good of the country and our citizens, but also for the good of advancing this technology in the right way, that we can put some rules in place.
One last topic I wanted to touch on. News broke recently that Vance Bolter, who has been indicted on federal murder charges related to the killing of State Rep Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark at their home on June 14th. What do you think about calls by some of your colleagues like Chuck Schumer to do more about political violence and to increase protection for members of Congress? It's a scary issue. It's a big issue. But how do you think about it?
Okay, so to wind this back a little, the woman that was shot, Melissa, was a very good friend of mine, and her husband, they were the most delightful people. I'm sure you heard their stories. She was a mom. She taught Sunday school. She was a Girl Scout leader. She balanced all that and rose up in the House of Representatives to be the Speaker of the House. Worked incredibly well with her Republican counterpart. They actually had a shared power agreement for a while this last year, and ended up making an agreement on the budget that was very difficult a week before she was murdered with the Republicans and the governor. And she was the only Democratic vote for it because she felt it was the right thing to do. So this is this woman, just so you know. Then the other state senator that was shot, I've been in daily, like maybe not daily, weekly contact with his wife. And I mean, this story is extraordinary. She actually pushed a door through while she was being shot. There's a video of it, to get him out of the house and saved her daughter's life. And one of the things that happened yesterday, and she wrote me about this, was the charges were expanded to include attempted murder on their daughter, Hope. So that's the status of that. There was a crazy letter that was released that this murderer wrote as an alleged confession to Director Patel that was released yesterday, in which he claims some really crazy things about the governor that are not true, and an assassination attempt on me and my colleague. And so it's just been a kind of a weird 24 hours on this front, because it's on the social media almost like some people believe this, and this is the words of a mad murderer, just so people know. On the front of political violence, when this came out, Congressman Emmer and I, who've been friends for a long time, we actually led, along with Congresswoman McCollum and others, a bipartisan letter that morning. We talked 3 hours after we found out about the murder within our state, and we all got on it, every single member, from liberal to conservative, condemning the political violence, saying there is no place for it in our politics. And I hope we see more of that. I personally think, one, we need more security for members. I've been a long-time advocate for this, and with the police, and worked really well with them in the Capitol, but we have to do more in the local areas. Number two, we need to decrease the rhetoric, and some people need to look in the mirror if they're making this worse, and how you can have heated debate about issues without conjuring up things that are lies and make people want to kill people who are off balance. And then the third thing is just online in general, and I think I have the street creds to show it on this, that we need more rules of the road for this kind of content that comes out, which people who are unbalanced are watching. And it is not always the cause, it's not the only one, but it is a contributing factor to this right now. And I think about the assassination attempt on the president, or I think about the shooting of Steve Scalise, or the threats on the near shooting or killing of Justice Kavanaugh. We know this hits on both sides of the aisle, and it's become way too prevalent. And it is on all of us as leaders to bring down that rhetoric whenever we can.
Senator, thank you. I wish we had more time. It's been a real pleasure to hear your thoughts on some of these varied topics. But thanks for joining Hill Nation Summit, and I really appreciate it. And thank you for your thoughts.
Well, thanks, Alex. It was great to be on. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
At this time, we'll take a short networking break over lunch. See you back here in about 30 minutes. you.